Hello, hello, hello. Good Tuesday evening to everybody. Tonight, we're going to get into your neck. We're going to talk base and global things for your neck today. And if you guys say neck at the end or comment neck or comment that you want more information about this, let me know. And I'll do some more different posts about it. The neck is pretty complicated and I can talk about it for days. I love helping people, so I can pretty much talk for as long as I want to. So let's get into some of the base things. I want to cover some base bike fitting things, what it means to change your saddle and move it a little bit. Also what some of your muscles that you are getting into and how they can play a huge big role, and how a different area of your body can play a huge role for your neck on your bike that you wouldn't really expect. And then also an exercise at the end of how you can do the exercise off the bike and on the bike, and it can help you to correlate those two things and help take some stress off your neck. Because nobody likes having neck pain, especially at the top of the climb, or if it's going to limit you from like really pushing in to getting it and working the rest of your body and your endurance. If it's your limiting factor, because it sucks. I've been there before, gone to the top, and I've been like, oh, my neck, why don't I push that last little bit? And there's some things that you can do that you can change that, excuse me, and have that not be your limiting factor. So for your bike fit, there's a couple different things that we can do that messes with your weighting and how you're attached to the bike. So basics, how you're attached to the bike is a couple main different areas. Your hands on the bars, your feet, one on each pedal, and then your butt on the saddle. And so changing those different aspects, your hands, their placement, your feet, their placement, and your butt in the saddle, their placement, that can make a huge difference for how you're actually integrating and using different muscles. So there's specific ways of targeting and making certain muscles work versus making other muscles work. So specifically, if I'm just talking for your core and your butt, usually if you're engaged through your abs, you're a little bit rocked back, and then I push down, I'm going to integrate and use more of my glutes. And you can do this you can feel it by just sitting into a squat. And if you're engaged through your abs versus if you're too far this way, and where you're kind of stripper booty style, like Michelle says, then you're going to be using back muscles and you're not going to be using glutes. Well, if I change your position here, then I'm going to make you use your glutes. So same thing can happen when it comes to moving your saddle forward or back. And if you move it forward, then that can actually cause the same thing that I just showed. So if I'm too far forward with my saddle, and I'm here and I'm a little bit upright within it, I actually have a tendency of arching my back too much or being a little bit too far upright. It's almost like your cockpit is a little bit, it feels scrunched. And so this can be a bike sizing thing as well as a bike fit thing. But you can kind of monitor that a little bit. And so if I have my saddle too far forward and I'm here, then most of my weight is going to be on my butt, on my saddle, and on my feet. And I'm not going to have as much through here. But when I'm going to pedal and I'm going to move that leg down, I'll drive more with my back, and that'll make me pull actually a little bit with an arm. Pull a little bit here, which will actually cause more stress to be put through my neck and through my shoulder because I'm wanting to gain some stability of my trunk through my other arm. And so moving that saddle too far forward or having it too far forward can actually cause that movement through there. And I think everybody knows that somebody's like, they're digging really hard in and they're almost diving in with their back a little bit when they're doing that. And that can cause that issue through your neck that you're kind of driving through there and stressing that neck a little bit more. So that's if it's too far forward. If it's too far back, then you're almost too far stretched out. It's like you're a Harley driver and you have like the chop handles through there. It's too far stretched out. It's like if you're in a plank and your arms are too far forward, you know that to match that arms too far forward, you're going to bring up those shoulders. Who brings up their shoulders in the rest of their day? I know I do. Women as a whole tend to hold their stress more through here. And so we'll walk around and we'll go through the no neck style because we're stressed and we just hold our arms up a little bit more through there. And then all of a sudden somebody comes over and they're like, dude, girl, chill out. Bring those shoulders down. And they'll help us to chill out through there. But naturally, we tend to grip up this way a little bit more so. And so if our saddle's too far back, then I'm almost too far tilted with my pelvis. I'm not going to integrate glutes quite as well because my abs don't have to be on at all. And then I'm stretched out through here, and that can also make me pull. But instead of it being a pulling when you're here, which is almost a little bit better, you're pulling through here and your shoulders are up. I hope that makes sense. If that makes sense, somebody comment that saddle position forward and back makes sense to them. I'd like to kind of know and make sure everybody's on the same page and it flows through like everybody knows. So somebody comment for me that it makes sense. So if you're too far forward, you're going to be too upright and you're going to arch your back within that, and that's going to make you pull through here because you're not integrating through your glutes. And then if you're too far back, you're too reached out, and that's going to make you want to raise those shoulders up to your ears, and that's going to pull on your neck as well. So there's that happy medium between that. Now, also talking about the sweep and rise of your bars. So the sweep of bars is basically when they are angled back towards you. The rise of them are how much, it's not a flat bar across, it comes up. And you can have different rises and different sweeps to help match your body type. The more that you have more of a 10 degree or a little bit bigger of a sweep means that when you're up and out of the saddle for going downhill, it's going to be easier. However, when you're going uphill, it makes it a little bit more challenging because you're more so here and it's harder to get your boobs over your bars in certain positions, in certain ways. So having that happy medium of that sweep position, what matches your body and your bike a little bit better is going to be your key within that. And then also to help with some of either your more aggressive and the bars positioned are downward a little bit or they're too far down, you may need a rise to bring them up and to bring your body up a little bit so it matches how your neck and upper body can be positioned on the bike. I hope this makes sense. And you can also, with a sweep and rise of the bar, you can tilt and shift the bar forward and back, and that's going to change things on your bike that you currently have. So if you have a sweep and a rise in bars, and you're wondering if you need to mess with that at all, just loosen up your stem a little bit and wiggle your bars forward and back. There's an optimal that the manufacturer wants you to use, and then you can play with it just a little bit forward and back. Another thing to note is where your brake levers are. If it's making you round forward a little bit too much when you're climbing, or if it's positioned in a good place for both climbing and descending. So you want to check them for both of those to make sure they're optimal for both. Okay? Just a little caveat there. So now going into more of the muscles that may affect you and your shoulders and your neck comes down to one of the bigger ones is making sure that your glutes are working for you. So I mentioned this a little bit when it comes to whether your saddle was too far forward, is that your glutes weren't working with you enough and your core wasn't working with you enough because you were driving through your back, that you would pull on one and then the other. And this, you can tell if you're doing this a little bit, if when you're actually climbing a whole lot harder, if your wheel jumps or you lose control of actually where you want to ride to. So if you're like tracking down to miss this rock and then all of a sudden you take a bigger pedal stroke and then your front wheel turns and you hit the rock. That means that you're probably tugging on your front handlebars instead of loading them a little bit more appropriately, putting weight forward enough where you can have that good sense of control. But if you're pulling from it, then it's going to change your steering because you're usually not pulling both sides if you're using only one leg that's pushing down. You're going to pull with one side, then you're going to pull with the other side. If you're using that for your trunk stability, you're using that to get your leg muscles to work for you. It's baffling, isn't it? You wouldn't think that here would matter for here, and it does. It's a lot of times one of the missing puzzle pieces. You're like, well, I feel like my arms are strong. I feel like my shoulders are strong. I feel like a neck is all right. But then whenever I go out and I ride, I have a lot of neck tightness, and I don't know why. Because you're pulling from that bar, and that's really disrupting how you're moving on the bike. So that's like the big eye-opener muscle that I think is really important. The other muscle that probably, if you've gone to see anybody about massage therapist, PT, chiropractor, we've all probably heard about this lovely upper trap muscle through here. How many have been told that their upper traps, or these muscles right on top of their trunk, their shoulders, are tight and big? I have. Whenever I get super stressed, oh my gosh, they're like freaking boulders up there. Mine are like stress magnets. I'm like, beefy. I've actually had somebody ask me like, oh my gosh, what do you do for your upper traps? They look gorgeous. I'm like, what do you mean? About how big they are and stressed? Ooh, not good. Not good for me. So whenever I have that, yes, Elizabeth, you know for sure, that tightness that gets up there, I'm like a stress magnet for mine. So that guy is one of our bigger muscle groups that affect our neck for our shoulders. And knowing how to integrate and not use these guys, especially when we're on the bike, is your key component to make sure that once you get to the top, especially if it's a little bit more of a technical, a little bit harder, a little bit more of a stressful climb, you're breathing a whole lot, that you don't really overdo it quite as much. And how you get that and how you integrate that in is going to be through this exercise. So let me lower the camera so you guys can see me when I'm down on the floor. So what you're going to do is you're going to be in a hands and knees position here. You're going to shift your weight back slightly, and then you're going to raise up your arms. The key within this is that you're not going so far back that it's easy for you to lift your arms. I want you to shift your butt back just enough to offload these hands. And you're going to be balancing through your knees. This is going to make your core work. It's going to also make your glutes work if you leave your feet nice and free. They should be able to wiggle through this. I don't know if you can see my feet wiggling or not, but your balance and your main point of contact should be on your knees. Okay? How you integrate this on the bike is when you're climbing, you need to make sure that you can be light on your hands, that you're not pulling through them, and that also you can shift weight to them to make sure in case you need to get up out of the saddle that you have your other point of contact for it. So this integrates the use of glutes with the use of your trunk and with your ability to hold weight through here without putting so much stress on your arms. And I definitely feel it through these two places. And having that ability to just barely lift off and hold that weight through there is going to help you a ton. This is a great thing to practice when you're gravel grinding or when you're going up some of the fire roads, or if you're on like an easier single track. Don't try to do that unweighting of your hands when you're really trying the technical climbs at first. This is to make sure that you don't have to pull through that handlebar to get your trunk control and get your trunk support. You should be able to do them separately. Have here all control and support you while your arms are offloaded. That makes you not feel like you have to use your upper traps quite as much, these lovely muscles up here, and that you can use the rest of your body to help with taking some of that load off. Does that make sense? Has anybody ever tried this before? It's basically like a modified deadlift. And you're loading through your butt, through your core to take pressure off of those hands. And being a mountain biker is a lot easier on your neck than a road biker. due to the fact that we move a whole lot more. We don't stay in the stationary position as much. And so if you do ride road or if you do ride gravel, sometimes making yourself less aggressive, so less of a drop for your handlebars, bring yourself upright a little bit more, and then putting your upper back in a position that you're not so hunched over with and moving through your pelvis more so is going to help you out a lot. As a caveat for those who ride gravel and or who ride road, because I know there's several girls in here that do that as well. So, overview of what we talked about. If your saddle's too far forward, you're going to potentially want to pull with those arms, and you're going to use your back muscles a little bit more. If your saddle is too far back, then you're going to be stretched out a little bit too much, and that's going to put more stress on you to want to shrug your shoulders as you move. When it comes to the muscle that is kind of an eye-opener for what can affect your neck, it's your glutes and your core. They play a huge role. If you're not using that, then you're going to pull with your arms on that handlebar, and that's going to make your steering veer off, especially whenever you're really trying to dig into that climb. For the exercise that I gave you that you can do on and off the bike is that you are in that hands and knees position. You come back just a little bit and enough where you can hold that same position and move those hands off. How you do this whenever you're climbing is you literally just tighten up through here and here, and you make sure that you can lift off those hands. Now you're not gripping too hard with them. Perfect. Charlotte, I'm so glad that you're going to think about this while you're riding. It's that the application of these things is so great. Like, go out for rides that you're just focused on certain aspects of it, and you'd be surprised at how much you're going to improve in these areas. If this is helpful, I'd love to know that it was helpful for you. And if you want more information into specific neck functions and neck movements, let me know, because I definitely can go in there. As I said, the neck is super complicated, and it can be broken down in so many different ways, especially for us ladies, because our neck usually is a pretty big issue for us. All right, ladies, I hope you have a wonderful night, and be on the lookout for Thursday for the next big announcement. All right, guys,